Olivia.
Hi, Susie. How are you?
Doing very well. Olivia, can you delve into just a little bit about your parents and also the most important lesson that you've learned from them?
I would be happy to. Thanks for asking. So I was born in San Francisco, and from the time I was a small kid, I always knew it was different. I was very sensitive. I could pick up on people's feelings and emotions. I could walk into a room and then immediately know who had, positive feelings towards each other, or maybe sometimes when people were in conflict. And it wasn't until later in my life I discovered through Myers-Briggs and the 16 personalities test that I was a mediator and I was a diplomat. And at core, that is one of my central personality traits. I always seek to create peace. It's very important to me that there's group harmony, and I think harmony is also an aspect of my culture, being Chinese. So growing up, I wanted to become a diplomat. I wanted to either work for the State Department or serve in the United Nations. And that stayed with me from a young age to the time I was 16, which is when I won a scholarship from an organization called the World Affairs Council in San Francisco. And I was delighted. They were planning to send me to Brazil on an exchange. And as a small teenager in San Francisco, I just had so many big dreams of leaving my hometown. I know San Francisco is amazing, and as I'm speaking, people are probably thinking, wait, you want to leave San Francisco? Like, what are you thinking? Well, it's the same situation that anyone from a hometown has. You have the desire to go out and see the world and see beyond your bubble. So when I won the scholarship, I was delighted, but what it really required is for me to go interview with a panel of foreign dignitaries and diplomats. And I was so excited. I studied, I prepared my questions, my Q&A, my interview. And I remember that to be able to go on the scholarship, my parents essentially had to save up all their money. We couldn't afford it at the time, and there was still a portion of the scholarship that they had to cover. And my mom was working 2 jobs, minimum wage throughout my entire life. So it really meant a lot to me to get this and to do well and to have that experience. So the story, I know this is a roundabout way of getting to it, it's sort of the context of why my parents mean so much to me, because the night that I came back from my scholarship interview, I remember that my dad picked me up, and this was outside of Sutter Street downtown, and he picked me up in his truck, and I got in and I just started bawling. I was crying so hard. He was like, not that well equipped to deal with an emotional teenager, especially an emotional teenage girl. But he said, what's wrong? And in his most stoic voice of all stoic voices, I said, they said I did really well. They even complimented me. And I thought I did well, but then they made a backhanded comment. The panel did, and they said that I couldn't speak very well and that I sounded really rough. And they sort of made this, in my best vocabulary when I was 16, they made me sound like I was this ghetto kid from sort of like inner city San Francisco, and that I wasn't polished or presented, and it really broke me down. And for years, I remembered how that felt so much that the years after, leading up to going towards the SATs, I would read books out loud. Books like the encyclopedia. You shouldn't read those books out loud, but I did because I really wanted to learn how to pronunciate and enunciate. And now people always tell me that I sound quite eloquent. Well, that's because I worked really, really hard. But the story is that my dad, he said to me that night when I was crying, he said 2 words, 2, 3, 4, maybe 5 max. It was a very simple sentence, but he said, good leaders don't use words to make people feel inferior. They use words to build bridges and win hearts. And that is the only thing I remember other than I went home that night. And so I look back, that experience was maybe 10 years, even longer. It was way in the past. I'm grown now. And I look back at that moment and I think my dad taught me to be a good leader. I didn't become a diplomat, but I became a great leader with his advice.
Through that experience, you read the encyclopedia out loud and you were able to practice, day and night with your enunciation, and now you sound very eloquent. How do you think that has helped you in terms of your future prospect of like a career or like talking with people or connecting with people?
That's an excellent question. Thank you so much for that question. Well, I'm a mission-driven person. My life's work is to create impact that will live beyond just me. Hopefully I can create impact that will change my children's generation and their children's generation. And what I've learned about doing mission-driven work is that you have to be a good communicator. You have to be able to advocate for your cause, get people to get on board, and then inspire them to take action. Essentially, you have to be an evangelical in a matter of a few words, right? So being able to communicate well and articulate your cause, your passion, your values, your motivation, your drive, and most importantly, your story is essential to someone who wants to do good and be of service to the world.
What are some lasting words that you would, provide for others?
I would like to share this message with a very specific group of people, and that's any young woman between the ages of maybe 16, hopefully they're watching this, I don't know what they're doing right now,
Yeah.
So between 16 and maybe 27 or 28. And my message is that for the first early years, you will probably live in a world of competition. You will see women as competition to yourself. You'll walk into a room and think, oh, who's the one that's prettier than me, smarter than me? We even see this in the pageant world too. And I think in the early years and when you're starting to develop who you are and your sense of self, it's very easy to sort of play that comparison game. But really what that does is it traps you in a cycle of thinking about things you honestly don't need to spend any energy on, because you have a life and you have passion and you have time and you have amazing relationships to build and dreams and goals and aspirations. So my message is really to really start thinking about what you want in this world and the time that you have, and use it wisely to bring yourself joy, because this is all, like, happiness and having purpose and a sense of meaning is an inside game, and no one can give that to you except for yourself. So I wish personally that I didn't waste so much time in my early formative years, like worrying about what people thought, worrying about if boys liked me, if, I liked myself. And now I'm at a place where I really like myself, and I just get to spend my time doing things that give me a sense of meaning and happiness.
You're inspiring others to really find themselves and also feel comfortable in their own skin, which I think is really important, so that they can find their own passion and then from there share to the community in the world, just like what you're doing today. That's great.
Thanks.
Thank you so much for the interview today, Olivia, and it was a good time for everyone to get to know you and also for you to share your story. So thank you so much.
Thank you. I'm grateful.